G'day guys, and welcome to another YouTube lesson. Today we're taking a look at legal and human resources. And we're taking a look at how these two concepts, the law, legal, how it influences, impacts a business, and also how HR and workers can have a positive or negative influence or impact on a business. So, legal, what's that? Legal refers to following or complying with the law. It is a major influence for establishing a business because a business must make sure to comply with all laws if it's allowed to run and operate and stay running and operating. Now, some of the key laws to follow include having a business name, unless you are a sole trader and you're using your own name, but for the most part, registering your own or registering a business name, complying with correct council zoning laws, i.e. you can't have a factory in a residential area, and complying with health and other regulations that are related to your direct industry. So the first legal requirement, the first way that the law impacts, influences a business is through a business name. So under the New South Wales Business Names Act 1962, and even I wasn't born back then, don't say I'm lying, I wasn't, every business name must be registered, except when the name is that of the owner, then it is optional. They can choose to register it or not. But if something's added to a personal name, such as Pty Ltd or Motors, if it's a mechanics, or and associates or and co, then the business must be registered. So if you have your name and associates after, that still needs to be registered. It has to be your direct name to avoid business registration laws. If you're not registered, then you will be fined and you will not be allowed to operate, be insured, or hold a lease. So the owners, the landlords of factories will ask for your registration. Insurance companies will not provide insurance if you're not registered as well. Now, the second legal influence on establishing a business is zoning. Local governments control the zoning regulations, so that's council. It ensures that activities that do not belong together, such as things associated with factories and residential areas, are kept separate. We don't want, smoke and things like that billowing out of factories, the chimneys, right near, childcare centres or people's homes. If you're a shop, you're in the commercial zone, and you just buy a house residential and think you can just start up a business, you will often be fined and deregistered if you do so. So you must put the shops, commercial areas, in commercial locations. Now, you might say, but sir, what about those corner stores? That's okay, they are zoned commercial. So certain, within residential areas, certain spots have been set aside for small commercial locations to give residents access to small shops and so on. But for the most part, you need to make sure that you build a business in the appropriate zoning location. Now, health and other regulations, they're the last legal influence we'll be looking at in this lesson today. Local governments also impose health regulations, so local council look after this too. So some requirements for health and other regulations, especially around food storage and cafes, include the temperature for food storage needs to be appropriate and checked, appropriate kitchen layout, and correct food handling procedures need to be seen and in place. A health inspector will assess and look at premises quite regularly and often sometimes without warning to ensure that the business owner and operator maintains a set of standards. If problems occur, then the business sometimes are given time to rectify and fix this situation, and if not, they can be closed down. So all of these things we've mentioned, such as under legal, such as a business name, correct zoning, health and other regulations, these are things you'd need to talk about in a test These are things that have an influence on a business trying to set up and establish itself. Now, the second key concept from today's YouTube is to do with HR, human resources. Human resources refer to the people who work in a business. Now, how do they have an impact on a business? Do they? Of course they do, we wouldn't be looking at it. They are a massive influence on any business, but especially an SME. Who already have been mentioned, SMEs employ 50% of the Australian workforce. So they have a big impact upon these small businesses because they provide employment for them. How workers operate and how well they work impacts on the business. In order to succeed, an SME, a business owner, must make sure to effectively manage their workers, their human resources. Once the business is operating, and if people are employed, the small or medium business owner must fulfill a number of important HR requirements that deal with staffing objectives, specific duties to be performed by their staff, a forecast of future requirements and skills, have a form of an organisational chart, effective admin records need to be kept to manage the employees. These are all things that a manager, an owner, must do if they want to keep their human resources aspect of a business working well. Now we're going to take a look at skills, cost and wages and how these influence and impact a business. So skills refer to the employee's ability to be able to adequately perform their daily tasks. It is very important that an SME is able to employ staff that are highly skilled in the right area. If they have skilled workers, it is the business, if they have skilled workers, then there is a much better chance that the business will succeed. If on the other hand, businesses are hiring, recruiting workers without the correct skills, then the business is going to have a negative influence or impact. So the next dot point that we're going to be looking at under the HR is cost. Workers, human resources, are quite costly to an SME, often one of the greatest costs to a business. This will obviously have a major influence or impact on any business. There are two main costs to the owner to employ human resources. They are wage costs and non-wage costs. So in terms of how do workers impact a business in terms of costs, well, we've got these wages that they've got to pay them and additional costs that we may not be aware of. So what are wage costs? Well, if we take a look at wage costs, they're what a worker is paid per hour, and then they're paid that per week or fortnight. The other type of wage cost, it's not really a wage cost, but in the syllabus we put it in there, it is salaries. Someone like myself is not paid a wage. I'm doing these for free at the moment for my students who probably never watch it. Okay, but it's part of the salary that I earn, which presently students should know, $118,000 a year. But next year it's probably more, $121,000, then $124,000, and so on. That sounds like good money. So these are a salary, but any financial cost to the business of employing workers is going to make it hard for a business to succeed. But we call them wage costs in the Year 11 course. In Year 12, it's the monetary rewards you must pay. The other cost to a business of having workers, employees, is the non-wage costs. Now these are the on costs, the additional cost of having employees. Things like sick leave, maternity leave, in case I have a child, but for men, paternity leave, long service leave, we call it extended leave now, but I've got plenty of that saved up. And if you're not nice to me, I'll take it all at once. We've also got, what else we got? Vax leave, holidays, and a big contributing expense to a business is superannuation. depending on what year you're looking at this. At the moment, it's about 9.5% of my salary, the wage bar, is in addition put into a separate account for me, and that there is used for when I retire. All right, so if I'm earning, say, 100 grand, which I'm not, much more than that, and if we said super is 10%, it's not, it's 9.5, but we'll say 10, then I earn my 100 grand, but my boss also has to pay another $10,000 each year into my super fund, which I get when I retire. So these are all big expenses. If a boss can keep these expenses down, legally, properly, then that can be successful for a business. If it explodes and gets too big, then that can be a negative impact on a business. All right, thanks for listening, guys. See you next time.